What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the NFL Universe. I'm joined with Max today,
What's up, guys?
and pretty good week of football. Starting off right away, I think the biggest news of the week, which happened literally past midnight, it was like kind of in the middle of the night. Urban Meyer was officially fired from the Jaguars, and I think everyone could say it was a long time coming. Like this should have happened months ago, but kind of happened after some news broke from Josh Lambo, former Jaguars kicker. He was cut at some point. I forget when, but he came out saying that he was called derogatory and stereotype slurs by Myers. And then at some point, Myers came up to him after he missed a kick and actually kicked him, like physically assaulted him. And the way that Lambo described it was that it wasn't necessarily his hardest kick from Urban Meyer, but it wasn't like a love tap. It was like Urban Meyer essentially physically assaulting him because he missed a kick, and it's just unprofessional. Josh Lambo's a NFL player. He's a man. He'll be able to take that, but it doesn't make it right. And this is just the compounding issues from Urban Meyer we've seen throughout his entire tenure at the Jaguars. I mean, between play calling, player selection, one thing that I can think of is Travis Etienne. Taking him when you have James Robinson, the list goes on and on in terms of the things that he's done. And then you also have the scandal with the college girl that he was with at some point. I mean, it just never ends. It's just, me and Max just said it. He's never going to get another job. I mean, this has been horrible. Max?
And you also have to remember last weekend, during the week, he supposedly got into a fight with his assistant coaches, like saying why he's a winner, saying why they're all losers. And I saw that he actually challenged them individually to compare their resumes to his. And not only that, but he got in a fight with Marvin Jones, who actually walked on a practice, but Marvin Jones is one of the more respected guys in that locker room, and he still got into a fight with him. It's just, this has got to be the worst head coaching tenure I've seen. I think, at least since I started watching football, probably is of all time. And yeah, I don't, even in the college level now that we know like what his personality is like, and we've seen everything he's done, I don't think no one's ever going to want to take a chance on him. And I don't think he's going to get a job as like an analyst or anything like that. I don't think anyone's going to want anything to do with him. I think his reputation's just done.
And I'm at the point where I'm like, I struggle to believe all these accusations against him because they just seem so wild. I mean, what kind of head coach in person who comes into a locker room with your coworkers, and this just goes beyond football and starts berating them about you comparing resumes and trying to outcompete with them? It just doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying they're liars. They're definitely telling the truth because everyone's coming out saying the same thing from multiple avenues, multiple sources. It's just I don't understand where Urban Meyer's head's at. Was this covered up through his time at Ohio State? It must
That's
have
what I
been.
was always wondering. Like, for example, the video in the bar, like I wouldn't be surprised, not be surprised. I'm sure he was like cheating on his wife all these years. I'm sure like whenever he was on the road at Ohio State or Florida, I'm sure he was having women to his room all the time. But like, I can never imagine him being dumb enough to go to a bar and do that, because all it takes is one photo, one video, and it goes viral. So I don't know how it took till now. I mean, maybe the NFL really is just that much more hardcore in terms of getting exposed like that. I really don't know.
Yeah, and it's like I consider that too, but it's like exposure wise, Ohio State probably has more fans than the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah.
So it's like, hello, how is this happening all at once? I don't know.
Yeah.
That being said, moving into the games of the week, week 14 had some pretty great games to them. A lot of good competition. Without further ado, first game of the week, Steelers Vikings. That's what I have up here. Vikings take this one 36-28. The Steelers have just been really inconsistent this year. They're not going to make the playoffs at this point, I don't believe. And then the Vikings as well at 6-7. I don't believe they're in the playoffs. But Ben Roethlisberger had a solid game, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Najee Harris had 94 yards and a touchdown. Receiving wise, Chase Claypool had 93 yards. And then on the Vikings side of things, Kirk Cousins went 2-2. Touchdowns, interception, 216 yards. I know that Dalvin Cook had a fantastic game, and he did. 27 carries, 205 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Pretty much the highlight of this game was Dalvin Cook. And Dalvin Cook's been pretty good as of late. He's kind of settled back into his like top 5 running back role in the NFL. I think in the past couple of games, it's it's really good for the Vikings, but at the same time, it's a little too late because even though they picked up a couple games, they're still 6-7, and their odds of making the playoffs are pretty slim. And that goes with the Steelers as well. I believe Steelers are as close to elimination to the playoffs as you can get without actually being eliminated. Max?
One thing I also want to talk about in this game is I feel like you can't mention it without talking about Chase Claypool. Like this is a player whose antics are really getting the best of him. I think the cherry on top of everything was at the end of the game when he caught a fourth down pass and the Steelers had no timeouts and he comes up to the line and celebrates instead of getting the ball to the line of scrimmage. And I remember after the play he goes and chews out his own lineman for it. And this guy is quickly becoming cancer. He's more known for his antics and his play on the field, and his play on the field is pretty good, but he just can't stay out of trouble, it seems like. And early in the game, he took a dumb penalty, just like shoving one of the Vikings players in the helmet. And even I saw Mike Tomlin went and talked to him, presumably telling him like, "Hey, you need to settle down." And like it's one of those things where it takes a lot to put Mike Tomlin over the edge like that because he's talked about how he's a player's coach and he doesn't really get onto his players that often. But now we're seeing this, and if we thought this stuff with Juju was bad last year, Claypool's like so much worse. And you have to wonder if this continues, how much longer can he remain on the team?
And just going off of that, I saw this news piece. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, but this week or the week before about this piece on ESPN. It was like, should they have music at practice in terms of the Steelers? And like Chase Claypool was talking about it, and it just goes off to the antics in terms of like it's so unfocused on football. But that's pretty much all I gotta say about that. Moving on from there, you had the Saints and Jets. Saints completely obliterate the Jets. No surprise there. 30-9. The Jets are officially eliminated for the playoffs as a result. Moving on from there, Falcons Panthers. I want to talk a little bit about this game in terms of obviously the Falcons are not going to make the playoffs, and neither are the Panthers. I think the person that really don't want to talk about here is Cam Newton. 178 yards interception and then 15 for 23 passing. Also had 47 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown. Got benched, I think, for the second, third week in a row.
I believe second week.
Second week because they kept him in
because they were on the bye. They were on the bye 2 weeks ago. Because it was the last game in November, then this one. So it's 2 games in a row.
Yeah, so 2 games in a row he gets benched. And it's kind of funny because we did, he came in that first game where he had very limited playing time right after he got signed and very little exposure to the concepts that the team was running nowadays. Obviously, former Panther. But he's really fallen off the cliff since there. And it's just, I'll say this. I actually have to modify what we had said before in terms of he's not good enough to start in the NFL anymore. I think that's pretty clear through 3 games. However, I still think, when you look at that, I have 4.7 yards of carry and a touchdown. And then, even though he had the interception, 15 for 23 passing, he's still definitely good enough to be a backup, I think, in the NFL. I think that's where his niche is at this point. That being said, obviously not good enough to be a starter, so I just have to modify a little bit. He continues to make mistake after mistake, and it's not helping the team at all. Max?
I think it's one of those things where I think it's a good feel-good story for him to be back on the team. That's where he belongs, but it's clear he's just not anywhere near what he was. He's not good enough to start at all, and it shows. He can't really throw the ball that well. And maybe as a backup, but I don't even know because he keeps getting benched. I don't see how you can depend on him to be on the field at all at this point.
It's true. I just feel like he has enough talent compared to a decent portion of backups in the NFL. Like, for instance, the Giants are starting Mike Glennon for the second week in a row.
Fair, yeah.
I might take Cam Newton. Just Mike Glennon's not doing much for me anyway. At least Cam Newton can run with the football.
Right.
With that being said, next game, Seahawks Texans. Seahawks bounce back this week for the first week in forever, it seems like. They win 33-13 against the Texans. Russell Wilson had 2 touchdowns, 260 yards. Solid game out of him. Rashad Penny, who's like a first-round draft pick, 3 years ago-ish? I forget.
Yeah, he's breaking out a little now.
Had a fantastic game here, 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Tyler Lockett, 142 yards and a touchdown. Still DK Metcalf on a minimal amount of targets, 4 receptions on 43 yards. Just get DK Metcalf the ball. I think it's been a good portion of the offense that missed this year is being able to, DK Metcalf is one of those guys you throw it in his vicinity and you let him go get it.
I
And
remember
then
in the game against Washington, he didn't have one till I believe the last drive of the game. I could be wrong, but I remember it wasn't until the fourth quarter at the very earliest.
they just do not target him enough. Also, on the Texans side of things, they decided to deuce on Tyrod Taylor, officially keeping in David Mills from this point on. So interesting, I guess they want to give the rookie a shot. And I think David Mills has performed pretty decently. And, he's not great. I don't think he's going to be a long-term franchise starter. This Texans team really needs a player that's really going to change the franchise.
It's hard to tell what he can do with the talent on that team.
Yeah. So this Texans team is definitely going to start from scratch, and they're going to have to go get a really top two quarterback in the draft and completely rebuild from that standpoint. But David Mills, for the time being, isn't horrible. And I think it pretty much covers everything I wanted to cover about Texans and the Seahawks. Anything else, Max?
Not really. I mean, both bad teams.
Gotcha. So moving on from there, Raiders, Chiefs. The Chiefs absolutely destroy the Raiders in this game. I think it's just an interesting scenario here. So the final score 48-9. Chiefs moved to 9-4. Raiders moved to 6-7. Start with the Raiders side of things. Ever since that Henry Ruggs case, this team has been inconsistent and it's pretty much fallen apart. And I don't think it's a coincidence. Again, I'm saying that for a couple of weeks now. An event like that really can break apart the chemistry of this team, as well as losing your head coach and et cetera, et cetera. David Carr, 263 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 reception.
David Carr.
Yeah. Derek Carr. I don't know what I said. David Carr. Hunter Renfrow, 117 yards and touchdown. Hunter Renfrow again has been really good receiver this season. He's not talked about enough.
No, he's not. And I completely agree with that.
I say that. I think I say that every week too, because he's always up there on the stat board in terms of
his route running. Just watch him play.
He's very clean routes. He's had nearly like 100 yards almost every game this season. I can think of. On the Chiefs side of things, Pat Mahomes, 258 yards, 2 touchdowns. David Gore, I think it was Derek Gore. Yeah, it's Derek Gore. 66 yards on a touchdown. That's all the names this morning, huh? And then Tyreek Hill, 76 yards. So I just want to go about this game in terms of a couple things here. The Chiefs defense has really picked up since the beginning of the season. There's no doubt about it. The offensive line chemistry, I think, is one of the biggest things that's really picked up since the beginning of the season for the Chiefs. The offensive line, I forget their names, but I know the center and guard combo are performing very well right now. It's their center and their right guard. Blanking on their names right now.
Is Tooney one of them?
I think Tooney is one of them. Tooney, I think, is their center. I just saw a clip of film from them the other day, and it's just
Trey Smith. Is it Trey Smith?
I think it might have been Trey Smith. Yeah,
I think it is Trey Smith. Yes,
those two are performing extremely well, as well as the rest of the offensive line. They've really picked it up. It's made a huge difference. I mean, we're looking at the Chiefs from the beginning of the season. The Chiefs right now, completely two different teams. The Chiefs are back in tied first place in the AFC. It's not a coincidence. Again, defense picked up, offensive line picked up, line play picked up, and it's just making all of the difference. And they're back into obviously playoff contention because within the blink of an eye, they've won I can't tell you how many in a row, 5, 6 in a row now.
I believe they won 6 in a row.
6 in a row now, and it's just a completely different team. Max?
I think one of the things that makes the biggest change on their defense is Chris Jones being in.
Mm-hmm.
Because then when they allowed him to or at least him being allowed to play on the inside, because I don't remember if it was him being out or someone else being out, but either way, he wasn't allowed to play in the interior. But when they do that defense is so much better. As for the offense, I don't know. I still want to see more consistency. They've only had their best games against the Raiders. Other than that, their offense really hasn't been clicking much. So I think there's still a lot to be desired there, because even with the offensive line getting better, it still doesn't change the fact that Mahomes doesn't really have a great secondary receiver or run game to help him out. So I don't know. I still think they have their issues, but I guess unless when they play the Raiders.
I definitely do agree with that. We're looking at it, their run game. What's their highest rushing yards per game? About 60 from a Derek Gore. It's not great. And then the receiving side of things, teams that are so well being able to cover Kelsey and Hill at this point in terms of, the entire concept of their defense is built around that. And they're not much of a running game either, so their offense does struggle still. So I definitely agree with you there. They're not 100%. They're not. I don't think the team that they were last year. Don't get me wrong. And I think it's still at the same time somewhat of a night and day difference in the beginning of the season to now. But there's still more to be desired. 100%. Moving on from there, Ravens, Browns. Browns take this one 24-22, keeping the Browns' playoffs hopes alive. Huge division game pick. win here. Huge game to pick up. Ravens are 8-5. Browns are 7-6. It's gonna be a race to the finish in terms of who wins this division. Looking at things, Ravens, Lamar Jackson goes down, I believe, with an ankle injury, was it?
Yep.
Yeah. So he only had 17 yards passing in this game. And then he had 270 yards from Huntley when he stepped in a touchdown. And then Devonta Freeman had 64 yards rushing. And then Andrews had 150 yards and a touchdown. Brown side of things, we had Baker Mayfield, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 reception. Chubb ran 59 yards. Kareem Hunt goes down with another injury, which is just so frustrating because I have my fantasy team and it's just Peoples-Jones had 90 yards. And then I believe defensively, I can't remember if he had a sack this week. Myles Garrett, he had a sack this week. Yeah, that's right. So Myles Garrett, still up there. I believe Micah Parsons leads the league in sacks right now in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken. He's had like 9.5 sacks at some point throughout the past couple of weeks. It's just incredible because he's been a linebacker. But we'll get to the Cowboys. But ultimately, again, Browns steal this game, and it's a huge one, Max.
I can't really get a read on this game because like the Browns, they were up by a lot. The Ravens offense looked bad, but then they let the Ravens in. It's not like, Baker was still in the game and the Ravens had a backup quarterback in the game. I don't know. It seems like nobody wants to win the AFC North. We're being honest. That division is just going to beat each other up for the rest of the year, it seems like.
Yeah, it's just Browns have been all over the place again because of injuries as well as some mediocre play here and there. But it's really interesting to see how these teams are going to end up, I think, at the end of the day.
Now the Browns have a COVID outbreak on their hands, it looks like.
It's true, yeah. Across all sports right now, it's just the outbreaks is getting ridiculous. But I was looking through the the next team we're gonna get to is the Cowboys and the Washington football team. Anyway, I almost said that. It's been name change for years. Well, good morning to me. Looking at the sack leaders for this year, TJ Watt's actually in first place with 16 sacks. Myles Garrett with 15. Robert Quinn, he has 14 sacks on the year. That's incredible considering his age. Nick Bosa with 14. Hendrickson with 12.5. Judon with 12.5, and then Micah Parsons with 12, which, again, Micah Parsons playing middle linebacker and having 12 sacks is incredible, but we'll get to that right now. We had Cowboys versus Washington. Cowboys win 27-20. Not necessarily the score is much of a play here because I feel like Washington's usually pretty competitive despite being 6-7. That being said, this game pretty much solidifies Cowboys going to the playoffs. Not that it was really slim chances anything else happened, but at this point, the Cowboys win the division. Dak Prescott didn't have the best game. He had 211 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Ezekiel Elliott had 45 yards rushing, and CeeDee Lamb had 61 yards receiving. Going to the defensive side of things, again, we know what we're going to here. Micah Parsons, looking for his name on my list here. Here we are. Had 2 sacks in this game, as well as combined with 3 tackles. So Micah Parsons, without a doubt, is Defensive Player of the Year. And he's just an absolute monster. Again, from the middle linebacker position, he's good in coverage. He's good against the run. He can pass rush extremely well. This guy just does it all. And, he's a night and day difference, I think, for this Cowboys team, especially on defense. Then Trayvon Diggs, you got to have backing up, who's been a really good corner this year. It's just been really good defensively for the Cowboys. The only thing I have to say about the Cowboys, I think that their running game has struggled a little bit this year. Ezekiel Elliott really hasn't been in form. And Tony Pollard's been solid, but again, just a little bit of a mix there compared to what you usually see from the Cowboys, which is a fantastic running game coupled with a really good running game. Because passing game, that's our offense is really good. This year, defense has really stepped up, and I think it's made all the difference. Max?
Yeah, the defense stepping up them really has made a difference. I didn't pick the Cowboys to win this division in the early year, but one thing I didn't take into account was the fact that they'd have a really good defense, and guys like Trayvon Diggs and Micah Parsons are making all the difference. It's crazy to see a guy like Parsons. Usually, guys like him are kind of Swiss Army knives and have a hard time finding a spot in the NFL because the NFL wants you to specialize in one position, but he's been able to do it all. And not only winning defensive rookie of the year, he'll win rookie of the year most likely, and he'll probably win defensive player of the year. I don't think I've ever seen something like this, and he could be really a once in a generation prospect. He's that good.
100%. Moving on from there, Jaguars Titans. I'm sure Max is happy about this one. Shut out by the Titans 22-0. Good bounce back game. Titans really needed this one, Max.
Yeah, we really needed it more than ever. I mean, it's the offense is still going to struggle without the stars. Julio Jones was back in this game, but he only played 45% of the snaps. I remember I was at this game and I sat behind the Titans sideline and I was screaming for a lot of the game, put Julio in. Like, yeah, I understand. Like, we didn't want him to get hurt, but I guess it's good to like not risk it like too quickly, but he's gonna have to play more snaps if he wants to make an impact. He still got 4 receptions for 33 yards with having played 45% of the snaps, which isn't terrible. So I mean, it's not like his own performance was that bad. And as for the defense, I mean, what really to be said? I hope the third down defense left a good bit to be desired. But other than that, I mean, it's not much to say. 4 interceptions on Trevor Lawrence, a shutout like yeah, was expected, but and we stifled them every way. And once our defense comes back and we're healthy, I mean, I think we have a really scary unit because Bud Dupree's on pace to return this week. We added Zach Cunningham, and he's going to probably play this week.
Mm-hmm.
And the secondary is Kevin Byard, Christian Fulton, and Monty Hooker. And once he comes back, Jack Rabbit Jenkins. I mean, one of the biggest question for this Titans team this year versus last year was the defense. Last year, the defense was porous. This year, it's rounding into one of the best in the league when healthy. I mean, I don't want to say. I mean, I don't want to say too much yet, but with the way the AFC is looking, I mean, there's really not a team that scares me, and anything could happen this year. But I do think the Titans have to be one of the top 2, these most talented teams in the AFC, and if that defense can make the difference, who knows how far this team could go.
And Zach Cunningham pickup, I think, is really underrated because when you think about him last year compared to this year hasn't been great. But he's still a really young. He's a young linebacker with a huge amount of talent and a huge upside. He was fantastic for Texas last year. Obviously didn't play great this year.
I don't know why they ever let him go.
He hadn't performed overly well this year, and then they decreased his snaps, and he quickly just fell out of the rotation in terms of the linebacker core. But it's going to be huge. I think it's going to be huge for the Texans, Titans rather. It gives them a lot of depth. Yeah. We are from there. Broncos Lions. Broncos won at 38-10. Broncos moved to 7-6. Lions moved to 1-10-11 and 1. Obviously, Lions are eliminated from the playoffs. Broncos still fighting for that wild card spot. At 7-6 is going to be tough. They're gonna try and win out because I think whatever team that's like 7-6 right now wins out has a shot at that wild card spot. So it's going to be a race to the finish there. Next game, Giants Chargers. Not much to talk about here as a Giants fan. It's just we're horrible. We're 4-9 now. It just seems like every year we finish at 5-11, and obviously there's an extra game this year, but 5-12, 6-10, whatever it comes out to be. Not really sure. Just not looking good. Mike Lennon, 191 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 reception. Saquon Barkley had 64 yards. Saquon Barkley also had a very nice touchdown reception in this game. There's a nice little I don't even know what you call it, a little stutter and go route. Looked really fantastic. It's just like, is Saquon Barkley our best receiver? Maybe. It sucks that we can't block for Saquon Barkley, and he just hasn't been the same in the running game this year. But either way, this Giants team not good at all. We're 4-9. Chargers are 8-5. They'll likely make the playoffs. They're in the same division as the Chiefs, so it's going to be tough. But I think that Chargers probably win out that one of those wild card spots. So that being said, I saw a statistic where it's the Giants have 3 offensive touchdowns in the past month or whatever it is, and apparently Jonathan Taylor has more touchdowns than the entire Giants offense, and it's just you hate to see it, but
you really do.
Well, back to back, we have the Bears pick from whatever years ago when I forget who we traded.
It was last year's draft.
Last year's draft, yeah.
That was when they moved up to take Fields.
Yes, so we have the Bears pick as well as our pick. So right now, I think we're projected to pick at 6 and 7, which would be fantastic. That gives the Giants a ton of room to pick up a ton of talent. You go and get an elite receiver and an elite offensive lineman back to back, something like that. It can really somewhat hope. Pray to God it makes a difference for this team because they need to do something, and Gettleman needs to be fired. I don't think there's anything to talk about there. But all I gotta say about that game, Max. Any comments on the Giants?
No, I think you covered it all.
Yeah. Moving on from there, 49ers Bengals. 49ers defeat the Bengals here. 49ers have played really well as of late. The Bengals not so much. 26-23 final. 49ers moved to 7-6. Bengals are also 7-6. Looking at this game, Mitchell was out, I believe, with some sort of finger injury. I forget what first injury. I forget what it was. George Kittle was fantastic in this game, 151 yards and a touchdown. Bengals side of things, Joe Burrow had 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 348 yards. Then Higgins had 114 yards, and then Jamar Chase with 77 yards and 2 touchdowns. Anything else to say about the game, Ends?
Not really, besides the continued progression of Jamar Chase. I mean, it's a shame he's tailed off as much as he has in the second half of the year, because I thought with the way he was going, he was for sure going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year at the very least. And he had another game like this that solidified. He still very well may, but I thought it was a lot more clear cut then than it was now. But I mean, it doesn't change the fact that his future is so bright in this league.
I think Mac Jones is probably in play for that now at this point, because he's had, not that Mac Jones did anything over the top, but he's performed very clean sheets. 1 interception, 2 interceptions, pretty good completion percentage, and his team's just top of the AFC. So, Jamar Chase, him, I'm trying to think of anybody else that's really in competition for that award right now. Nobody that I can think off the top of my head. Where we are from there, Bills, Buccaneers, 2 Titans go at it. Buccaneers come out on top in OT. Bills moved to 7-6, and then the Buccaneers moved to 10-3. In terms of the Bills being 7-6, they've had a really tough schedule this year. They've had to go against Patriots, who have been extremely hot. The Buccaneers, I'm trying to think of the other teams have had to play that have been extremely hot this year that they've dropped games to. That being said, Bills had a really tough schedule, and even though they're 7-6, they still definitely have a shot to make the playoffs still. If they miss the playoffs, it's a combination of the fact that I think the running game needs some work, as well as they've had a tough schedule. I think it's a combination of those, because Josh Allen has performed decent this year, but overall Buccaneers come out on top on this one. The Bills were down big, and then what did the Bills put up? They put up like 17 points in the fourth quarter in order to come back and tie this game to put it into OT. But Josh Allen, 308 yards for touchdowns, 1 reception. Josh Allen was also their leading rusher with 109 yards on a touchdown. This is what I'm talking about. Devin Singletary, 52 yards, and then you had Breida with 12 yards. So talking 60 yards for both your running backs. It's not great. Receiving wise, Diggs had 74 yards. Beasley had 64 yards, and then Knox had 60 yards on a touchdown. Defensively, nobody really did anything spectacular. You had a sack from Milano against Brady, but going to the Buccaneers side of things, Brady, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. You had 363 yards out of him. Fournette, who's been absolutely a beast this season, 113 yards and a touchdown. Also had a rushing touchdown from Brady, which is what it is. But Brady was really keen to run the ball this game. I don't know if you guys have seen the clips. Brady's definitely posted a couple of them. He called that Madden to change his speed rating after he ran for a first down. But Godwin had 105 yards here, and then Evans had 91 yards and a touchdown. Again, Buccaneers fantastic team, 10-3, and I saw a statistic this week that said, with everything being solidified at this point, and the Buccaneers can't have a negative record, they can only have a positive record. Brady's worst season in the NFL, he went 9-7. That's incredible. That just doesn't happen. Brady's the GOAT. There's no question about it. Max?
I want to go back to talking about the Bills and just I think that the Bills it's obvious how many problems they have on their offense. They didn't run the ball at all in the first half. Not one. That just shows you what you know. This offense really begins and ends at Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. When Josh Allen's your leading rusher that many times, you have issues. And Josh Allen, he's doing what he can. He brought his team back in the fourth quarter of this game, but it's just not enough. And especially the Colts are ahead of him at this point, and with them having tiebreaker over them because the Colts killed them. I don't know. I'm not really sold on this Bills team making the playoffs this year. It's been a slump for them. And I think last year they were able to do it. They caught fire, they had momentum. But this year the teams have figured them out. And it's sort of like the Chiefs situation. They're going to have to get a lot more piece into their offense if they want to go any further. Because right now, all it really is Josh Allen, because they have to game plan for him and Stephon Diggs, and there's really no other threats in this offense.
Very much agree with you. Bears, Packers. Packers take it 45-30. Packers win 10-3. Bears are out of the playoffs. Packers perform really well. One thing I consider about this game is like the defensive wise from the Packers was not great. Giving up 30 points to the Bears. They're going to win a couple playoff games. It's just my question is they going to win they're going to win the Super Bowl? The 100% Super Bowl contenders. Just giving up 30 points to the Bears at this point in the season is like an enemy, but should be fine. And then Rams Cardinals. Rams take it 30-23. This is probably one of the biggest games of the week. Rams have really fought back after losing. They went like 1-3 over the past couple of games. And now they're 2-4 in the or 2-3 in the past couple of games, really picking up again. Rams moved to 9-4. Cardinals moved to 10-3. Matt Stafford 287 yards, 3 touchdowns. Mike Michelle had 79 yards rushing. Cooper Kupp had 123 yards and a touchdown. Just want to talk about Odell right here, 77 yards and a touchdown. His career has been revitalized by going to the Rams. He's had, I think, 3 touchdowns or something, whatever it is, in the past like 3 weeks. Has performed very well for the Rams, and compared to what he was doing with the Browns for so long, it's night and day. You know, the change of scenery has been great for him. Floyd had a sack. Jones had a sack, interception rather. Those interceptions. Aaron Donald with 3 sacks in this game, absolute monster. We got on the Cardinal side of things. Murray had 2 interceptions, no touchdowns, 383 yards. Kyler Murray is also the leading rusher with 61 yards. And then Connor, 31 yards, 2 touchdowns. AJ Green, 102 yards. Hopkins, 54 yards. I believe Hopkins is out the following week, next week for the rest. He's out for the rest of the regular season. Yeah. So interesting game here. But the Rams take it. They've been in form the past couple of games. They've really got working themselves back to form here. Max?
I think the story of this game really, at least for the Cardinals, is just miscues because Murray had a few picks. They could have gone for field goals twice, but they didn't, and that arguably cost them because they might not have to go for 6 on the final possessions had they kicked the field goals. And then they had 2 fourth down failures, and one of them was a drop by DeAndre Hopkins, which never happens. I mean, this Cardinals team, they're going to be okay if they can continue to play clean football, but this game, I definitely think it was more of they lost it than the Rams won it. And especially who knows how they're going to be impacted if DeAndre Hopkins is going to be out for a while. And it's been pretty obvious he's been hurt the whole year. So I feel like they're being smart by shutting him down for as much as they are. But then again, he was shut down for a few weeks before with Kyler Murray. So I mean, can he get healthy again? I don't know.
And I think if these teams made the playoffs at some point, it's going to be a battle, just like this one, 1 touchdown game. So just the Rams were the better team here, and the Cardinals did not play overly fantastic, and that's really a difference.
Yep.
Moving on from there, so we have week 15 of football coming up. Only 3 weeks left, I guess. 3 weeks left of football. Technically 4, I guess, because we haven't actually played this week. But that being said, so going into the lightning round of picks, here we go. Chiefs, Chargers. I'm going with the Chiefs here. The Chiefs have been absolutely hot lately. Yeah,
I'm going Chiefs. They're on fire lately. I can't imagine them losing to Chargers twice in a year.
Raiders, Browns. I'm going with the Browns. Again, Browns come off a nice one off the Ravens, and the Raiders have just been an absolute mess. So I'm going Browns.
I'm going Raiders. I think the Browns with their outbreak, and they kind of fell apart towards the end of the game last week. And I think it's going to be a weird game, but I think the Raiders can take advantage of what the Browns are going through.
Mm-hmm. Patriots, Colts. I'm going with the Patriots. They've been hot.
I'm going Patriots.
Titans, Steelers. I'm definitely going with Titans here, no doubt about it.
I'm going to do what I normally wouldn't do. I'm going to go with Titans just because I believe the defense is getting healthy. The defensive line is back, and I think that it's going to be a revenge game for Bud Dupree. And I just, even if the Titans offense can't do much, I don't see the Steelers doing a ton against the Titans defense in this game, especially when it comes to our defensive line versus their offensive line.
Panthers, Bills. I think the Bills are going to bounce back here with 8-6.
Yeah, the Panthers are just done. I think the Bills they have to win this if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive.
Washington Eagles, irrelevant game. I'm going to go Washington here. They came off a decent game against the Cowboys.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised, but yeah, I'm going to go with Washington as well. I think the Eagles can't really stay consistent.
Texans, Jaguars, absolute toilet bowl game. I'm going to go with the Texans just because Jaguars are without a solid head coach right now, even though they even have one in the first place. But change of head coach, regardless, is going to hamper this team, and this team's already horrible. So I'm going Texans here.
I'm going to go with the Jags. I think that this team is going to be motivated to come together and play hard because all of them are pretty united in hating Urban Meyer, and I think it's going to motivate them to come together as a team and probably put their best game they have all year. And against a bad team like the Texans, I think they're going to come out on top.
It'd be such an interesting game to see. Like, this is the firing of Urban Meyer bringing them together, which would be fantastic. I'd love to see it.
I really think it will.
Yeah, going on from there, Cowboys, Giants. I'm going with Cowboys here, no doubt about it. The Giants are absolutely horrible.
I'm going to go with the Giants. I think it's going to be one of those weird ones. The Cowboys, they look like they kind of took their foot off the gas last week, and we always know Cowboys-Giants game is going to be close. Yeah. I'm going to go with the Giants. It's people are going to laugh at me for that, but I think I'm going to do it.
Cardinals, Lions. I'm taking the Cardinals, no doubt about it.
Cardinals, yes.
Jets, Dolphins. Go with the Dolphins. The Dolphins have played pretty well as of late. Jets are horrible. Bengals, Broncos. Probably a good game here. I'm gonna go with the Broncos, I think, just because I think the Broncos have been playing pretty well lately, and they really need this win. And the Bengals, they've been kind of iffy, so I'm going with the Broncos.
I don't know. I'm going to go with the Bengals. I like what they have on offense more. I think they have a lot more firepower, especially with Joe Burrow versus Teddy Bridgewater. Burrow's way more capable of elevating his team, and defensively, they're still pretty formidable. So I'm going to go with the Bengals in this one.
Falcons 49ers, we're going with the 49ers.
Go with the Falcons. I think the 49ers have tendency to get win games and lose games. I think it's one of those games they're going to lose now.
Seahawks, Rams, going with the Rams.
Rams, yes.
Packers, Ravens, going with Packers.
I think don't be surprised if the Ravens keep it close because that's what they do. But I just don't think they have anywhere near. I don't think they have anywhere near the talent to win this game, especially with both their starting corners being out.
Buccaneers, Saints, we're going with the Buccaneers.
Again, watch out. It could be close to anything. The Saints seem to have their number at least in the regular season, but I'm gonna go with the Bucks because I think the talent wins out.
Vikings, Bears. We're going with the Bears here just because I think they came off a solid week offensively against the Packers, and the Vikings are they won one last week, so knowing the Vikings are due to lose one this week.
Yep, that's exactly my thought. I think the Bears pretty much for that reason. I think the Vikings are pretty incapable of winning back to back, so they're gonna find some way to lose like they always do.
100%. And with that being said, that wraps up our week. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.